Frishy.
I have a couple different things. I will start with regards to ordinance number 58. I just, late last night, I sent an email to all of council. This morning, forwarded it on to our law director and mayor. Over the weekend, with regards to ordinance 58, which is with vacation of Carroll Street and Benton Street, we found out that there was additional properties that are having landlocked issues. One of them was 730 East Sandusky Street. Then there was city property in between. And then I also received a phone call from a property owner on Osborne with regards to the original petitioner having some obstacles that they're having to overcome with vacating Carroll Street in order to get a vehicle to the back of their property to trim trees. We also have, as we heard at the beginning of the council meeting, there is a referendum out there that could go on the ballot. I brought these items to council's attention because I feel that in the best interest of the city to do what's best for the community as a whole, to avoid any potential lawsuits to the city if this goes forward, would be to rescind ordinance 58 and move forward, leaving things as they have been for many years. I also received, and I think most of council received, a letter from Lynn Shank, who lives at 730 East Sandusky, and I wanted to take a minute to read that into the minutes. It says, "Dear City Council, I have been following a rumor on Facebook that hints that the city and the Neelys are trying to vacate streets that would directly adversely affect my property at 730 East Sandusky Street. I have 4.37 acres, including an acre and a half north of Lye Creek near Hawthorne, Carroll, and Benton Street." I lost my place and I apologize. I have not been, Benton Street, that might become landlocked if the city, might become landlocked, and in the city we reconsider it. I have not been notified that the city or any such application for vacation, and as an affected property owner, I would clearly want to be notified of any such intent. The city could have easily sent me a postcard at this address since I live there full time and asked for my opinion. I understand that all affected property owners would have to be in agreement before any such action could be considered. You or the Neelys would certainly not have my permission to vacate any streets that lead to my property. I am a tax-paying citizen and I cannot believe that the city would do such a thing. This must be a mistake. I am so glad that Holly Frishy posted a picture of the proposed vacation, since almost no one in the neighborhood would know where Benton or Carroll Street is located. These are all of the unimproved streets with unknown names that I have been patiently waiting for the city to develop properly as planned. Please send me the form to sign to protect my property so I can deny permission. Up until this point, I thought it was a neighborhood fence dispute, neighborhood mowing garden dispute with threatened retaliation from the city. I did not know until I saw the map posted on Facebook this weekend that my property had been threatened. I had not seen this map previously in any of the newspaper articles. Once again, you do not have my signature or permission for these street vacations. This would create a serious hardship for this tax-paying landowner. After that email and with my email this morning, I asked our law director what our options were. He must have forgot to get back with me on that. I did receive an email back from the mayor, and I believe council may have received that as well. And basically the gist of that is stating that she would be willing to look into talking with the county with regards to the flood property that abuts or backs into the same area for the 730 East Sandusky, to see if we can get an easement for that property owner. But she did not seem to want to address the full issue, which I feel leaves it in council's lap. And tonight, unfortunately, is the last night to address this matter before it becomes law. So I would like to make a motion to rescind ordinance.
Go ahead.
The only people who can make such a motion are those who voted with the prevailing vote.
Mr. Schindeldecker, Mr. Schindel, let's hear the motion first, okay? I don't know what the motion is. Okay. Go ahead.
To rescind.
Go ahead.
I would like to make the motion to rescind ordinance 2018-58 because we are causing hardship to multiple property owners, including ourselves. And to rescind that ordinance, I do not believe it has to be by a member of council who voted in favor of the ordinance. I believe that would have been for a reconsideration, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm not asking for a reconsideration because we are past that point. I am asking to make a motion to rescind and asking for a second to do that.
We need a legal opinion, Mr. Rasmussen.
Yeah, the motion is for reconsideration, not to rescind.
Can't do a reconsideration, is that correct? According to Robert's rules?
Right, correct.
So we're asking to rescind, which we can do.
It's a motion for reconsideration by your rules.
So Don, I asked for your legal opinion this morning on that. So what are the options to fix this problem so we are not causing a hardship to more than one property owner, which we shouldn't be causing a hardship to any? If the mayor is not willing to veto, what is the option of the city?
She can't veto it.
Correct. So what is the option? I'm waiting. I asked for that legal opinion of, is it the mayor that needs to fix the problem or is it city council? So which?
The mayor can't veto it, so it's signed.
It was signed but not passed until tomorrow. That was our discussion this morning.
Exactly. So we had that discussion and I told you that. And I told you also that she couldn't veto it. So they did look at it, and I'll let them explain why some of these properties aren't landlocked and what they thought they could do to help the situation.
Well, I would first like to have your legal opinion of what, as city council, are our options to fix this problem to avoid a lawsuit in the future or any hardship to these property owners. That was a question I called you with this morning, Don.
Right.
And I know we referred it over to the mayor, and I know we got a response that she's willing to fix 730 East Sandusky, but doesn't seem to feel that there is a landlocked issue on the city property, and she does not feel that we need to fix the other portion. She can talk about landlocked. I have all the maps here. I'd be glad to talk about it with her. But my first question is, what is city council's option to fix this?
You can do a motion to reconsider, except you're out of time for that. So that has to be by your rules that you've adopted. It has to be done by the next meeting.
Correct.
And by somebody who voted in favor.
And what does
So
a
that's
motion?
out, and there is no veto.
So what is a motion to rescind? Can you tell me what that tells us that we can do or not do?
You can't rescind by a separate motion a piece of legislation that's already been passed.
Mr. Niemeyer?
I would second that.
Okay. Mr. Schindeldecker?
I checked with Robert's Rules of Orders, and only a person with the voted with the prevailing side can make such a motion. I don't know about the second. I believe that it is not proper for Ms. Frischi to make such a motion. Only those who voted with the prevailing side can. I would ask if if you want to be clear about this, poll those on the prevailing side and see if any of those, the 5 members, or I don't believe you could do it, President Monday, ask any of the 5 members who voted with the prevailing side if they are willing to initiate the process to rescind, repeal, or whatever.
Mr. Harrington.
There seems to be a couple legal questions that have not been addressed. The question from Ms. Frishy or Mrs. Frishy was whether she can propose a motion to rescind, which she did. It was seconded, and the question before legal counsel is whether that's appropriate or allowed under the current rules of counsel. And I think that should be answered before we move on with any other questions.
Again, the legislation has been passed and it's been signed. Now, there's a referendum petition there, and there are motions where during the same meeting you can have discussion to rescind something previously adopted on a motion, but this is a motion to reconsider. You are trying to change your votes, so it is a reconsideration motion.
Mr. Watson.
Just a question and clarification, Don. So I guess what I'm struggling with is how is the motion that Holly made different from, I mean, we pass legislation all the time, and previous councils have passed legislation, and future councils can repeal certain sections of city code, you know, at a later date. How is this situation different from that?
Well, you're asking a different question. You're asking a question of whether when it goes through, because we don't know if it will go through or not. It's still subject to referendum. That if you wanted to, another council can move to change it, but obviously at that point in time, all those vacations have been made. You know, maybe fences erected, whatever. I don't know. It'd be a difficult issue to try and straighten out afterwards.
I see. Thank you.
Ms. Frishy.
So, council can write their own rules. If they want to allow my motion and second to go to vote, that is an option, or is that not an option? Because you said it's our rules, so I know you always say
they're your rules, and you've been looking at them for a year, and those aren't adopted yet. I don't know if those would have anything in it about rescinding, but you're still talking about a reconsideration motion, and that's the rules under your rules.
that we cannot reconsider afterwards because it's Robert's rules, but rescind you feel is the same word. So you're telling council that we have no option and no motion that we can make, even though this ordinance was passed on the 7th, it does not become law until tomorrow. So it has not technically passed, if I'm not, is that correct? It's not technically passed until tomorrow.
It has technically passed, yes.
Okay,
It's
so,
technically passed, you passed it.
okay.
Mr. Watson?
I'm just going to, in a way, respond to Holly. We're just going to discuss the comments. And so what you're saying is that, yeah, right now the option is kind of passed for us to do that. And in a sense, I guess, what I see happening, and that's why I can see what Mr. Schindeldecker is saying, is even if we were to reconsider, I still think at this point, unless anyone else has changed their mind, it's still going to be 5-5 or go to 6-5. And I personally feel that wouldn't be kind of a productive move unless someone else who voted affirmatively changes their mind. I guess that's what my personal opinion is on that.
Mr. Schmelzer.
If I'm allowed to ask a question, if I'm understanding this correctly, the reconsideration, because it has not been formalized, can occur tonight. And that would be to reconsider that. If the votes are changed, then the vacation in its entirety would not occur. Is that correct?
Well, it's not correct in that you've passed two ordinances. you've passed an ordinance that last year that started this whole thing
You passed an ordinance last year for what?
to vacate Benton Street.
Last year?
Yeah, you did it in
Well,
17.
that was,
No, no.
okay.
2017, 58.
That was-
we have it.
Way different.
Yeah. that
So
was-
the
that was
most
done
recent
first.
legislation was to, and I'm going to forget the names of the streets, but we have a short stub that runs north and south and another run that runs east and west. That one could be reconsidered tonight if someone who voted for the vacation got a motion and a second.
No, the reconsideration has to occur the very next meeting after the ordinance was passed. That would have been last meeting.
I see.
It's too late to reconsider.
All right.
Ms. Frishy,
This is just gonna go back. So if even, I still feel that we need to clarify the difference between reconsider and rescind, because reconsider had to, and what I read from Robert's rules, has to happen in the same council meeting, not the next one or 2 or 3 after. It had to happen in the same. I understood rescind to be, it could happen afterwards. And even, I guess, Paul, from what I understand, he is saying, even if you had a member of council who voted in favor of it, it would not be acceptable to vote on because they're considering it passed. Is that correct? If a member of council sitting here that voted yes to the vote of 2018-58 made the motion instead of me, who voted against it, would it be reconsidered?
It's a motion to
Rescinded? Would it be a
one more
motion to
time,
rescind?
Motion to reconsider, and if somebody on the side that voted for wants to make a motion to reconsider, they could have at the last meeting.
Mr. Schindlerecker.
I agree. I think it's a moot question, but maybe we can save some time and get beyond this. Why don't we just poll those who voted with the prevailing vote and poll those of us and see if any of us is willing to initiate any kind of a motion, call it rescind, repeal, whatever. I, for one, am not willing to do that.
Mr. Harrington.
2 things. One, Mrs. Frishy, I need to clarify that the property owner on Sandusky, I know that HRPC addressed her concerns, and it was my understanding that the property did not abut the current Benton Carroll vacation. That at one time it may have, and I would need clarification from either HRPC or the zoning department, an initial vacation that was both applied for and approved by Mr. LaGuire. Also, that the property that's along Sandusky, and you can remind me of the address, but I think it was in the 7 or 800 block. The property does, the house and all structures that are along Sandusky, Lye Creek does go through the property, with a portion of that property being to the north, but per rule, right, that a property that is to the north of Lye Creek it is considered contiguous to the property along Sandusky. So that property, even though it is split in 2 by Lye Creek, is considered one piece of property. That's my understanding. And so I think before you, in front of council, the press, and the public, make accusations that are true, that maybe you should have done your homework a little bit more to find out that what she proposed might be her concern, but those concerns should have been addressed at a different time than today. My second point is that that you've asked our law director 3 or 4 times, been asked and answered 3 or 4 times, that whether or not that ordinance can be rescinded, call it what you want, and he's answered 3 or 4 times that the answer is no, that there is a referendum, that is a course of action that Mr. LaGuire has taken. Whether it's successful or not, that's yet to be determined because the deadline is yet to be. I wish him luck in his endeavors. That I applaud him for his resolve in this matter. But at some point in time, this matter will be resolved, and it will be time to move on to other city business.
Ms. Frishy.
So, Mr. Harrington, I do my homework, and this is not about making accusations about anything. If you would like to look at the map, I'm speaking, it's my turn, thank you. Carroll Street runs into Wayne, and Wayne is what you would have to get to off of Carroll Street to get to the back of that property owner's property. So whether the mayor is willing to go above and beyond to talk with the county commissioners about the flood property to get her an easement is not the most upstanding way to handle this situation. Because we have a situation at 830 East Sandusky where they are talking about their properties not having full access, and then there's the city of Findlay property, again on the auditor's maps. Number 3, there is also about Matthias LaGuire did a vacation on his property of Decker Street and his portion of Benton. Grant Russell was on planning and zoning at that time and approved it to keep Carroll Street, 50 feet of it approximately, all of Carroll Street, 50 feet of Benton to maintain access to his property. There was nowhere in the minutes of objection. There was no concern to that property owner at that time. And then we get into a neighborhood dispute that we had no business getting in the middle of. And now that I have brought these items to light that I just learned about because I respected the vote that happened. I didn't agree with it, but I respected it. However, when council, whether it's the 5 who asked for the legislation or the 5 who voted in favor or against, when council as a whole gets additional information that is causing harm to city property owners, and the mayor is only willing to address one property owner and not all, that's sad. That's sad, that is unprofessional, and we as council are subjecting ourselves and city tax dollars to potential lawsuit dollars that we could end tonight. And the referendum, whether he gets the signatures, doesn't get the signatures, is not the issue to take it forward. We could have fixed it. And I do not understand why we are still playing 4th grade playground politics when it comes to property owner rights. When we have more than one property owner, including the Neelys, who made decisions that they are now having obstacles to overcome to be able to cut down trees or trim trees in their backyard. There's got to be a way, if the law director was creative, in order to fix this problem so we don't have to be spending potential lawsuit dollars for a year or 2 or make the city look bad on the decision that was made as a mistake. We made a mistake. We can fix a mistake. Instead, and we could save face in this community, and the mayor could save face in this community by taking care of this problem tonight. So I wasn't done quite yet, but I'm close.
Go ahead, Ms. Frishy.
I appreciate that, Ron. So if council, none of the 5 who asked for the legislation are not willing to revote it, even though Don says we can't, it's our own darn fault of where we're at. And unfortunately, I'm looking at a sign in this arena that I don't think many people can object to.
Put that down, sir.
Right there.
I'm done.
If he picks it up again, I want the signs and him out of the building.
We also need to make
you do
sure
that,
when
officer?
we have
Thank you.
council taking place, when we have citizens speaking, I will say this as well, that we deserve to give them respect.
I give
And
you
I
res-
would say that we are not always giving respect, and I
Ms.
know
Frishy?
I don't get it.
Ms.
You can
Frishy?
speak to me
Ms.
however you
Frishy?
like.
You're out of order.
Well, then be respectful.
I am respectful. He was violating our rules. We're not supposed to just have any displays.
Please
I give
change your
him,
tone with me.
I give him the benefit of the doubt with the signs. We should have not even had them in here. But I give him the benefit of the doubt. And then he wants to parade them. No, we're not going to parade them in here, Miss Frishy. Thank you. Mr. Harrington.
Yeah, I'd defer my question to Paul, and then I'd like to speak after him.
I would just like some clarification. Again, it keeps getting alluded to that the mayor has some course of action here that could be taken. Could that be clarified for me, please, Don?
She has no veto. She signed the legislation on the,
So what course of action is available to the mayor at this point to alter the course of the past legislation?
she doesn't have any ability to do that.
Does she have any ability to alter, this is the last time I'll ask it, to alter the path of the legislation? It keeps getting referred to by Councilwoman Frishy, and I'm curious as to what course of action the mayor has. None?
She has no course of action.
Thank you.
And that's the same for council, has no course of action.
Mr. Russell. Mr. Harrington.
Yes, I'd like to. Judy Scrimshaw's in the audience, and she's the person that I. Excuse me. I'd like Ms. Frishy to be quiet, please. Thank you. I was quiet while you talked. I expect the same from you. I'd like Judy to come and explain the conversation she had with the homeowner on Sandusky that the Lye Creek situation, and what she found both before, during, and after that. Thank you.
Sorry.
Could you pull that microphone down a little bit, please?
I'm sure. I talked to Mrs. Shank at 730 East Sandusky Street, and I looked at her parcel on the auditor's website while I spoke to her, and she said that she should have been notified. I explained that she didn't abut the pieces of right-of-ways that were in the petition, which was strictly Carroll and Benton. She doesn't touch either one of those and never has. So I said that would be why you did not get a notification. She started talking about the portion of her property that is across the creek, and stating that, but that would cut her from being able to go through there to get down to that portion of her property. She submitted, she doesn't go back there very much. She goes, I occasionally go back just to look at it, see what it is. And she had always gone through Mr. Mickey, who lived on Hawthorne Street, and went through his property with his permission to walk back there to look at her woods. She didn't even realize that the county had bought that property in January of 2016, and the house was gone until recently. So she hadn't been back there in quite some time. She goes, so I was surprised to see, the house was torn down, and I explained the flood program the county had. I said, and now that's vacant land, going to sit there, be open space, because they probably cannot do anything with it or let anybody put another house back on it. And she stated that she could probably see her property from out on Hawthorne Road now because it's a clear view because the house is gone. And she asked if that was public land so that she could go through there anytime she wanted to. I said, I don't know if that's true. I couldn't give her an opinion on that. I said, but no one would probably care if you walk back there. At this point, they're not really watching it. But I suggested if she wanted to, she could probably approach the commissioners. And if she wanted something legal that guaranteed her the right to pass through there all the time, to get them to give her some kind of an easement access. And she seemed, that was a good idea because she said really she could not get through the property if she did go down Carroll and try to go down that little strip of what would have been Wayne, because the woods is all overgrown, you can't go through there anyway. So, and it's a shorter route for her to go straight through that guy's lot and be at her property rather than zigzag through these other ways anyhow. So, she asked about coming to the meeting tonight. She said she'd sent you all an email, and I said, you know, that's totally up to her. Well, after I got off the phone and then thought about it, and her property's not landlocked because that is, like Mr. Harrington, that is one piece of property. It doesn't matter that there's a creek running through it. You can put a bridge across a creek. I know people that have them out in the country, but, you know, granted it's not cheap, but she obviously does not use it. It's woods. And of little value to anybody probably at this point. But we would only consider that when we look at things and whether something is a valid parcel when we're splitting property, to see that they have valid road frontage on a public right-of-way. Then as long as it does, I mean, the back part doesn't matter. That lot would have to be divided legally to make that a separate parcel that then was somehow landlocked.
Ms. Frischie.
Thanks, Judy. Judy and I actually talked earlier today while I was doing my homework, and also to add to the conversation that she had with 730 East Sandusky, the property owner, the back section, yes, as I mentioned, was divided by the creek. It is woods. She has not only used where you mentioned entering, and most of the time it's not her. She sends somebody out. If a tree falls, that they take it down. If she needs wood for her property to burn, she sends somebody out. And they have entered the property from Benton Carroll. They have entered it by getting permission from Mrs. Ellebrock, who owned the old property at 830 East Sandusky, where they would enter off of Decker that went between the city property to get there. So yes, there's dense woods, and we can split hairs on the word of landlocked, because I agree, it is one piece of property, but it always had access to it, and the access was from Benton, Carroll to Wayne, as Judy told me today when we had discussion, and Wayne is what would have got her onto her property legally and directly. Thanks, Judy.
Any other questions of Mr. Grimshaw? Thank you for coming.
Sorry, Judy.
Any further old business? We still have a motion on the floor from Ms. Frischie, seconded by Mr. Niemeyer. And I guess the question, before I accept that motion, I want to know from our law director, is that motion in order or out of order?
It's a motion to reconsider, and it is out of order. It should have been made at the next meeting.
Then, Ms. Frischie, your motion is out of order in accordance to our law director. Mr. Harrington.
Business, I'd